Hello, welcome back to the Reading Mama. My name is Heather, and today I'm going to share some nonfiction middle grade books. It is still Nonfiction November. How am I doing on my nonfictions? We're not going to talk about, but I am going to share some nonfiction books that my kids have loved. I've read about half of them, and it's an author spotlight too. So, as you know, we homeschool. We use a Charlotte Mason method. We are books are our thing. That is the primary source of how we do our schooling, and we focus on using living books. We don't use textbooks except for math. And sometimes like grammar and things like that. But otherwise, we're using living books, books that come alive as you read them. And so while we read a lot of fiction and we read a lot of classic literature, we read historical fiction, we also read a lot of living nonfiction. That is nonfiction that just comes alive. It's written by somebody who's passionate about the subject, who knows a lot, who's studied it, who's done the work, and makes you want to know more about it as you read. And I have this year, as we are studying 20th century, found a new to me author who I think has maybe not had the best marketing team on his covers and titles, but his books are phenomenal. And so I'm going to share a few of them with you. Now, keep in mind, I've read half of them. The other half I'm still working on. But yeah, so this is Albert Marrin. And the most recent, let's start with the one I love the most that I've read, and that was A Light in the Darkness, Janusz Korczak, His Orphans, and the Holocaust. I picked this up on Libby thinking it was a biography of Janusz Korczak, and it is, but it is so much more than that, and it is phenomenally written, and I just love it. He reminds me a lot of Sheinkin, Steve Sheinkin, in that he tells an interwoven story. And so you follow the life of primarily Janusz Korczak and what was happening in Warsaw, but there's so much more. He gives you background on Hitler. He gives you background on some of the elites in the Nazi regime. He goes through what the political structure was in Poland and what was going on there before the war, during, and just so much more. And then he even has some at the end that goes beyond, talking about Irene Sendler and her rescue of the orphans. Just a phenomenal book. Somebody who I've also read Irene Sendler's biography this year, and I've read Mario Escobar's The Teacher of Warsaw, which is about a historical fiction version of Janusz Korczak's life. And so that's what piqued my interest. My kids were all reading Albert Marrin, and this was the only audiobook available by him on my Libby app. So I picked it up. I'm like, okay, let's do that. And I read through it, and I'm like, this is the one my kids should be reading. This is it. This is phenomenal. I loved every second of the book because it's heartbreaking and heartrending because it's a horrible story. But the way he writes makes you just want to read more and you don't want to stop reading. And so I got this for my kids in print. This one, I think it has a good title. It has a good cover, and it has some photographs throughout. And there are, it's just well written and well published. I have the hardback version. And I have just really, really loved this particular novel. Now, some other books by his that we have used in our homeschool this year. My high schooler is reading that one for this current term. And then my middle schoolers read, my middle schoolers read Years of Dust, which is about the Dust Bowl. And I really love this. It's a huge book, so it's hard to show you. But it has, let's see here, lots of pictures. Whoops. Pictures, history, all the things that happen through the Dust Bowl and on and more. And it was just really well written. I read most of it. I didn't have my kids read every chapter just because of time constraints. But it gives you the background of what was happening in government, in environment, all the things that were going on prior to the Dust Bowl, during the Dust Bowl, and then a little bit after the Dust Bowl. And really just a phenomenally well-written book. My kids did not complain about reading this. I actually enjoyed reading it and telling about it. And we just really enjoyed this particular book. Now I'm realizing I forgot one of them. Let me go find it. Okay, I'm back. So also very, very, very dreadful, The Influenza Pandemic of 1918 by Albert Marrin. My high schooler read this one, and it talks about, just like all the others, he gives an interwoven story of what was going on during that pandemic and before and after. And I remember when I was reading through it, because I read most of it, not all of it. That's kind of how I pre-read a lot of things that I don't have the time to read the whole thing. So I'll read portions or most of it. But I do remember reading this after reading a couple pages. I was like, okay, was this after 2020? When was this published? And it is not, it was published, when was it published? But I do think it's interesting that it was discarded from a library. It was written in 2018. Because, yeah, just, let's just say there's some connections, and my daughter picked up on those. I will say that this book had a couple of graphic things. As I just picked it up, I realized my daughter has a bit of a sensitive reader, so she put Post-its over some of the pictures. But I will show you. It's not, I mean, it's a skull. Skulls kind of freak her out. So if you have a sensitive reader, you may want to, you know, definitely check the pictures. But it has a lot of infographics and things like that in here as well. And it just goes through, again, he ties in personal stories with primary source documents, with statistics of the time, with everything that was going on in the government, around the world, in America, all these different things. It's just very well written. And this one is also good. Then let's see here. My middle schoolers read The Yanks Are Coming, which was a World War I story. And this one, I don't, yeah, it's got some photographs in it. I couldn't remember if this one had any. And this one they really enjoyed. They enjoyed reading it. I thought they got a good synopsis of what was going on during World War I, and kind of United States part of it. We're in America, and so I've had to use other sources to try to get the rest of the world what was going on, but they really did enjoy this particular version. They read through it quickly. They didn't complain about it. They enjoyed it. They wanted to read more than what I was assigning them because they wanted to keep reading, and it goes through a lot of things. You jump back and forth between the big picture and then like in particular specific instances, if you will. And so that was very good. So now my middle schoolers, like I said, my high schooler was reading The Light in the Darkness. And my middle schoolers are reading Victory in Pacific, which is also phenomenal. And then you get the World War II story, but one that is not told very often in a lot of books that kids are reading I'm using these days are the Pacific Theater. Our kids have the unique lineage. They don't know them. They never met them. They died before my kids were born. But I had a grandfather in each, I think, in each arena, both East and West. And my husband also, his grandfathers, we had one in the East and one in the West. And so there's a lot going on. And we're reading all these other things that are happening over in Europe. My kids love World War II historical fiction. They get a lot of that other places. And so I wanted to make sure that they were getting something from what was going on out in Japan and that area. And so this has been a really good, follows back and forth through individual stories, share some letters and documents as well. There's maps in here. Very phenomenal, well written. Want to keep reading. My kids, like I said, with all of these, they like them. So then there's the two that I think that are not marketed well. They're just not marketed well. And this is the title that they put on it. And so Albert Marrin, if you ever see these, please come up with a better title for these. So we'll start with this one, Stalin. And I have started reading it. I haven't finished it, but it looks like it's going to be a biography of Joseph Stalin. And it is, but like with his other books, you're going to follow Stalin, but you're going to see all the surrounding things and how they are woven together. And so you get, let's see here. Sorry, I'm trying to read through. Maybe it has the, so you can see the chapters here. They're going through a lot of the different portions of what is going on in Russia, and all of that went into the rise of the Soviet Union and what was going on with it. And you go back and forth with what's going on in World War II. And so I'm working on reading through this because I do think it could be useful in our home, and I think my kids would like it. But the title and the cover are just not great. And then I hate to even put this on there because of the title, but it is Hitler by Albert Marrin. Again, obviously not a great title, especially for what it covers. So my daughter actually started reading this because I switched her over to The Light in the Darkness. Terrible cover, first of all. And the title is Hitler. So you already think, oh no, am I reading a biography about Hitler? And no, I mean, it is, yes, it does. But it gives his background and everything, but then it weaves in that story. So you get not just like, this is all about Hitler. And, you know, there are those kind of biographies, but that's not for children, and in my opinion. And this is, it goes through his life, but it also talks about what was going on in the countries that he was in, all the different things that happened, why he was the way he was, and all of that. So it's not just a biography of Hitler. And so it seems like, oh no, that's concerning, because, why would you want to read about these two horrible men at a young age? And I think our kids need to know about it, but they need to know that it's not, while I would consider both men evil, there's so much more. They're complex. There's a lot of things moving parts that are all interconnected, both in government and economics and the environment and foreign relations. And all of that comes through in these biographies, because we're not focusing just on those particular men. We are focusing on all the things that are going on that made them the way they were, or how they made the world to be. And so I do love his writing. I'm still working on these two, but the others I can 100% say I recommend for kids. I love them. Some of them, the content is intense. It's 20th century history. As you know, that's intense. So you may want to pre-read those. I would recommend it, especially if you're getting the hard copies. You're going to want to look through and see if any of the images are too graphic for your children. But otherwise, I highly recommend Albert Marrin because of his writing style. It has just been phenomenal. And like I said, middle school to high school. Some of you, if you have sensitive readers, definitely keep it to high school. I have no problem using The Dust Bowl, The Years of Dust, or Victory in the Pacific or The Yanks Are Coming with my middle schoolers. Those were not nearly as graphic, I don't think. But the others are a little bit more intense. But that is my author spotlight. So thanks for joining me. Have a blessed day.